Hello everyone, we are Jel and Rita, and this is an explainer video on Edgar Schein's article on active inquiry and listening as status-equilibrating processes. This concept falls under the second-person practice in action research. In this presentation, we will start with the active inquiry, followed by constructive opportunism, sensing status equilibrium, appreciative inquiry, and the summary of the article, including the 10 general principles of process consultation. When clients seek help, they will say a thing or two about their situation. However, it is possible that the consultant falls into the trap of offering band-aid solutions. As what Schein calls them, these are the off-the-shelf products. For instance, the client says, "Oh, our team is stressed out. What should we do? Please help." A typical consultant acts as an expert and suggests, "That's easy. Why not try team building? Or in my case, why not attend a spiritual retreat or a recollection?" When that happens, the consultant acts as a doctor or as an expert of the client's issue, which is not the role of a process consultant. Here's a question. Is a process consultant comparable to a business consultant? In the article, the term PC has been mentioned. PC stands for Process Consultation. According to Coglan and Bryden-Miller, PC or process consultation is about facilitating the conversation, building a relationship with the client, and at the same time, it enables the client to think about their situation and work their own issues. So a process consultant does not offer direct solutions to the client. Now, to answer the previous question, a process consultant is different from a business consultant. For our first key point, process consultants are not just passive listeners. Aside from listening to their clients, process consultants also help their clients to get engaged in the discussion, give them confidence to understand their situation, and enable them to become active problem solvers. Borrowing a figurative example of Dr. Ben, process consultants place a mirror in front of the client and help the client to conduct their own orjai, which is an intrapsychic process of observing, reacting, judging, and intervening. Now we can ask, what is the significance or the purpose of active inquiry in process consultation? Active inquiry aims to increase the client's confidence to examine and disclose their own situation to the consultant. This is to find out and capture all possible information about the client's situation. A consultant should not project his own thoughts or ideas in the process. Now, in order for the client to disclose information, active inquiry allows creating safe space for the client. Finally, in active inquiry, a consultant engages client during analysis and action planning. Both the client and consultant play a role in examining the client's situation. There are 3 types of active inquiry. These are pure inquiry, exploratory diagnostic inquiry, and confrontive inquiry. In pure inquiry, the consultant asks questions and places the client in the driver's seat. The consultant listens, and the client controls the process and content of the conversation. What are examples of pure inquiry questions? A consultant can ask the client, "What is the situation? Can you tell me what is going on? And what is happening?" When the client narrates his story, the consultant is recommended to visualize to see the realities of the client's situation. Active visualization enables the listener or the consultant to see the realities of the client's situation. As mentioned earlier, the consultant should not fall into the trap of projecting his own perception or own prior experience to the client. Now, there will be instances where a client asks the consultant for his feedback, but Schein recommended for the consultant to avoid the trap of answering the question and becoming the expert in this process. The next type of inquiry is exploratory diagnostic inquiry. In exploratory diagnostic inquiry, the client focuses on the issues within the story. There are three types of questions in exploratory diagnostic inquiry. In feelings and reactions, the consultant can ask, "How do you feel about that?" Next is hypotheses and causes, where the consultant can ask, "Why do you suppose that happened?" And finally, actions taken, where the consultant can ask, "What did you do about that?" After describing the situation in pure inquiry, the consultant now asks the client to review the situation from a new perspective in exploratory diagnostic inquiry. Schein reminded that a consultant must be conscious of the fact that each exploratory diagnostic question takes the client away from his own thought process into his own thought process, which builds a stronger intervention than pure inquiry. The last type of active inquiry is confrontive inquiry. In confrontive inquiry, the process consultant injects his own ideas about the process or content of the story. Now, the consultant does not just listen or perhaps ask the client to go into the details of the situation. Here, the consultant makes suggestions that may not have been considered by the client. The client is now introduced to new ideas, thoughts, hypotheses, and options. The process consultant can ask questions on process ideas such as, "Have you thought about doing this? Could you have done the following?" And the consultant can ask questions on content ideas such as, "Have you considered the possibility that you might have overreacted? And did that not make you feel angry?" The next key point is constructive opportunism, or the importance of timing in active inquiry. Schein argued that a process consultant should be cautious when shifting from one type of active inquiry to another. This is challenging because there are no proposed criteria in identifying when to change direction. Let's say from pure inquiry to exploratory diagnostic inquiry, or from exploratory diagnostic inquiry to confrontive inquiry. It is also important to note that it is acceptable to jump back and forth among the three types of inquiry based on the story, reactions, and ideas of the client. Schein also suggests in making an intervention when the client says something momentous to the story. It takes a certain type of skill and experience to identify that. Our third key point is sensing status equilibrium. According to Schein, the goal of active inquiry and listening is to achieve status equilibrium. Now, when does status equilibrium occur? Status equilibrium occurs when the relationship between the client and consultant becomes balanced. How do we know if it's balanced? It happens when the client becomes less dependent on the consultant, becomes less vulnerable, becomes an active listener, and at the end, embraces the consultant's insights. When this occurs, both the client and the consultant become comfortable, and they emerge as a team in dealing with the client's situation.
Thanks, Jel. Let us forward to key point 4, appreciative inquiry. Appreciative inquiry places a positive context on the problems. Process consultants give value in understanding the situation and envisioning what we can learn from it, instead of focusing on fixing the problem. In a sense, appreciative inquiry highlights the difference between adaptive learning, such as fixing the immediate problem, and generative learning, or building the capacity to learn so that such problem will not recur. Let us see what's the difference between the problem-solving focus and appreciative inquiry. Problem-solving is based on the assumption that reality is a set of problems to be solved, but appreciative inquiry is based on the assumption that reality is the miracle to be embraced and enhanced. If the consultant works from more of an appreciative inquiry capacity-building position, she will begin to ask more positive health-oriented questions, as the relationship involves and helps clients to see the value of appreciating what works instead of bemoaning what does not. After class, we can use appreciative inquiry to do exercise with your friend or colleague. First, ask them to share some problem they are currently experiencing. Second, get out the story using the active inquiry questions discussed previously. Third, as you get the confrontative type of inquiry questions, where you share your own thoughts, make a conscious effort to cast your own thoughts into the positive term by asking questions. The key point 5 is metaphors for change. The author mentioned it's necessary for the consultant to recognize his own metaphors and assumptions in the first phase of the inquiry process to achieve appreciative inquiry capacity building orientation. Let's see the table for the metaphors for change. In the metaphors for change, the author is elaborating the difference between the problem-solving focus and appreciative inquiry. As the consultants, there is a tendency that we focus on building and fixing the problem, which is a similar mindset of the engineer. The author suggests that for us to apply appreciative inquiry, we should change our mindset from the engineer point of the view to a point of the view from biologic or medical field, wherein we can harvest, grow, and bear fruit from the situation, or point to view from the psychological field. We think we can provide insight, create, and transforming learning, or a point of the view from sociology. We think we can change culture. The contrast between the various approaches will be least relevant at the beginning of the helping relationship, because it will be the client's metaphors that we will dictate the situation. Before conclusion, I will introduce 10 general principles of process consultation. First, always try to be helpful. Second, always stay in touch with the current reality. Third, assess your ignorance. Fourth, everything you do is an intervention. Fifth, it's the client who owns the problem and the solution. Sixth, go with the flow. Seventh, timing is crucial. Eighth, be constructively opportunistic with the confrontative intervention. Ninth, everything is data, errors are inevitable, learn from them. final is a one-in-doubled shared problem. The author mentioned when we are stuck and don't know what to do next, we can review 10 principles and sooner or later come to realization of what should have been done and what not, and what therefore to do next. And if that doesn't resolve the issue, we go with principle 10 and share the problem. Please see this graph. Let us review 6 key points. First, active inquiry has 3 levels of inquiry. There are pure inquiry, diagnostic inquiry, and confrontive inquiry. In the earliest stage of the relationship, pure inquiry is more relevant because it better brings out the expectation of the client and allows the helper to show the acceptance and support. In imagined inquiry process, the timing of the intervention is crucial, and the consultant must balance the needs to go with the client's flow with the constructive opportunism. When the timing feels right, the consultant can switch from the pure inquiry into the diagnostic or the confrontive mode. Also, when consultant finds the relationship between us was the beginning to be equilibrated, the client begins to more active in diagnosing his own story, the tone of the voice changes, and the content becomes more assertive. We can use the confrontive inquiry to insert our own idea. Often it's appropriate to jump back and forth among the 3 modes based on what one is hitting and on the strength of one's own reaction and idea. There are no simple criteria for deciding when the timing is right for a shift in focus. During the process consultation, we can adopt appreciative inquiry instead of the problem-solving focus, which puts a more positive frame around the problem, and we need to shift our mindset based on the 4 ways of the metaphors for change. At the same time, we need to follow the 10 general principles. When in doubt, share the problem. That's all. Thank you for listening.